Well, happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. Welcome to the new bird shop. We're celebrating our 39th anniversary today. We're so excited. We've got a good crowd. Everything's on sale. We've got lots of wrought iron to choose from, 15% off today. Basically, we've got prize drawings going on every 2 hours. We have snacks. We have vendors here. We're doing sprouting demonstrations. Our local AFA, American Federation of Aviculture, representatives are here today. And right now we are introducing Melanie Allen from Hari, who is going to do a nutrition talk for us. And we can't wait. So thank you, Melanie, for coming to visit us today.
I'm happy to be here. Okay. Well, as soon as we get everybody all lined up, actually we're going to talk about managing hormones in our parrots and whether we want them because we're breeding. Our birds are breeding, not us, but our birds are breeding, or we don't want them because it is spring and it is time when we get those little hormonal surges from our parrots that were sweet on Sunday and Tasmanian devils on Tuesdays. So we're going to get ready to get all started as soon as we get everybody all gathered up. Alrighty. Well, my name is Melanie Allen. I am part of the Hagen Avicultural Research Institute team. I want to tell you, Hari for short, as it's well known, some of the gift baskets that the bird shop has wonderfully put together include a lot of our product, including our toys, our diets, Tropican. I also have some samples here, but I want to tell you about what we do up at Hari. We are very much a research facility. We were established in 1985. We are part of the Hagen group. We've been studying all of the challenges that present with keeping birds, whether it is companion bird, it is avicultural. We're also a teaching facility for students of exotic veterinary medicine up in Canada. And what brought me to the company many, many years ago was that as a bird breeder, I was really frustrated with how things were going in my aviary. And I was just so impressed that Mark Hagen, who is the director, just came forward and shared everything that was available that they had learned. And it didn't come at a cost, it didn't have anything, it was just shared because it's avicultural research, okay? We all stop if we don't go forward with our education and our knowledge. And that goes for many legs of the avian community, whether it is companion bird or it's breeder or it's rehome, avian medicine. We have recently redone our website, and it is the go-to place for everything that you could possibly want to know about Hari, about your bird, bleeding feather, what to do, how to recognize signs of pododermatitis. Definitely got some information about our product. Easy to navigate. And like I said, the avian community has many legs, and we, as a manufacturer, support all of them. We have to. And there's a reason for it. One doesn't exist without the other. Whether you're the bird breeder, you're a rescue rehome, you're working with wild parrot conservation, we all rely on each other. And the main thing, and same way with the pet retailers like the bird shop. If we don't all stick together and go forward with that common passion, our love for parrots, then we don't exist as a manufacturer. We have no reason. Tiffany doesn't exist, and because she has nothing to sell. So it is something. But what we do up at Hari, we do try to go forward with all of our explorations to the avian community, from animal care professionals to identifying life stages of our parrots. Husbandry, nutrition is our biggest ongoing research program. That is something that we've been doing since 1985, and actually that was the reason Hari was established by Mark Hagen, because the industry even back then was seeing challenges with malnutrition. So there's just a couple of slides of our veterinary program where we teach our vets. We use our Hari flock members. Our favorite ones to use are the older Quakers. I know Quakers aren't legal here in California, but they are the most popular bird in North America from what I have observed, especially when people call and ask for free samples. They have a Quaker. Even in states, they're not allowed. But I just keep that to myself. So anyway, today we're going to talk about hormones. All right? Want to know what the fuss is all about? Heard you in the back. Yeah, hormones. Yeah, so we've all experienced that kind of thing. How many in here have more than one bird? That's pretty standard. That's standard. So the dynamics of woo-woo and excitement and you never know definitely have an impact on our life at certain times of the year. Now, when I first got into birds, most what was available were imported birds. They had a very different coping skill, and as aviculture got better at producing aviary-bred birds, we definitely have brought on greater pets, except we've also brought on a different set of problems and challenges. And a lot of it is that we've removed that fear or that independence from some of the birds. So you know more about how to care for them, how to feed them, definitely how to train them. So you guys all have like training tapes and all that good stuff. You've listened to Laura Joseph and Barbara Heinrich and all of that. But what we have realized is that this new generation of parrots, there are some shocking statistics that are very, very alarming. The birds aren't living as long as what they used to. This is something global. It is something that the avian veterinary section of our avian community have definitely noted. And there are certain reasons for it. We'll talk about that. Some of these reasons are our birds are a little on the obese side. A lot of obese. This week I've been in California with my sales rep, going to different stores, and the store bird is sitting there, and he's kind of beautiful feather, but oh my gosh, definitely what I call the D-cup bird. Okay, we all know what that is. Birds don't get enough exercise. I mean, these guys are getting exercise. It's easy to do that. But with our larger parrots, it's a challenge, okay? Unless we are in flight clubs and that, which I think is a very cool thing, but you got to be very dedicated to it. But the biggest problem that is adding to a shortened life stage is prolonged states of hormonal overdrive. And we may not even know we're doing it. So this program, basically, we're going to focus on how it happens, what the triggers are, and if your goal is to breed your birds, do the opposite. It's real common sense. Maybe not so much opposite, but know, what those, if you can identify the triggers, whether you want to breed your birds or you're just dealing with the flock at home. This is something you want to keep in mind. The triggers have much to do with nutritional, definitely environmental, behavioral, and a lifestyle. Okay? Whoops, I think I skipped one. Okay, and the reason that we want to be really concerned about this is because the stress can affect the life expectancy. This is definitely, it shortens their life. And it kind of makes them... when the birds are in constant hormonal overdrive, they become difficult to live with. And how many people have birds that have been rehomed because they've been relinquished? We have one. It's not as common here. In many parts of the United States, a lot of people do have birds that are home number 3, home number 4, home number 5 for the bird. So, we kind of want to check on that. We want to be aware of why it is that bird was relinquished, and a lot of times it's because it becomes screaming or and all that. But some of the health challenges for birds that are kept in a hormonal state. There's a prolapse of a cloacal or an oviduct. They get injured because they're masturbating. Egg laying. How many have egg laying hens? Nope. Good. That means that you have a great relationship with Tiffany and her store. Feather damaged behaviors. Feather plucking. That's a fancy word for feather plucking. And some of these causes can for feather damaging or some of these conditions, it comes from stress, depression. Sometimes, we get a little fearful. Some people in the house are afraid of the bird when and I remember a few yellow nape Amazons that were free flying in a home, and my son was little, and even my daughter, watch it. The bird would just attack. And I didn't want my kids to be afraid of birds, so it was, let's get on top of that. And thank God my kids are not afraid of birds. They both work in bird shops. But anyway, we do want to curb that. Okay. Now, we can't deny that it is a bird's instinct to be sexually active. Okay. We can't spay, neuter them. There are attempts at it, but it's not super successful. And the thing of it is, one step in trying to neutralize that does not take care of all of it. It's a very, you have to do many different things or be aware of them. So anyway, we do not want to be afraid of our birds, but we do want to know how to manage them. And just so you know, when we raise our birds up at Hari, we raise them with the early parrot education. And this is a scientific approach to how and when birds learn certain lessons. It's something you can read about on our website. I can do a whole presentation on just that. It's an amazing program. But when a young bird learns a lesson at a certain stage of its life, it remembers it forever. Just the same as if the bird's flying in the wild, Mom teaches them when to eat, what to eat by making them eat. The time for nutritional lessons in the wild is not the first time the bird leaves the nest. It would be catastrophic. So, but anyway, how many here know the gender of their birds? Good. How did you do this? Were they dimorphic? Did you have, that was easy. Yeah, that's easy. Okay. Did you do DNA testing? Okay. Back in the days, long time ago, it was never really expected to care what sex your bird was. And now it's even more critical. It's good information to know because there's different signs, there's different triggers, there's different ways to manage the male versus the female. Mostly we're going to talk about female because that is probably, to me, the most challenging. But, a lot of times we just... basically, these are repetitive. We've already talked about them. You can do DNA. I've had my birds for so many years, I just kind of knew what they were, and when they laid an egg, I was like, I was right. But I do have some birds, and I definitely do encourage everybody to know what sex their bird is, one way or another. The easiest is with obvious dimorphic, but the DNA... you can have your veterinarian, an experienced avian veterinarian, do a fluoroscopy. I always liked that because it was a really good way of checking the condition of the bird inside. When you got an endoscope, because that's usually what avian veterinarians would do. So, but anyway, like I said, it's now a responsible pet owner that knows the sex of their bird, because of the way that they handle them. I don't know why that one got in there again. Okay, so let's talk about some signs. Okay, it's spring. It's when we have those triggers, temperature, light, other signs. Are your birds screaming a little bit more during this time of year. And it's not just a spring thing. Sometimes it's just some birds, all they need is just a reminder of, oh, look, nest. Cockatiels. That looks like a nest. Or, some species actually prefer, year-round, or they do fall breeders where I live. I live in Florida. The African species definitely start displaying in the fall. It's really strange. So the other signs, panting, especially if they're being petted. We all know how to pet a bird, right? We all know how not to pet a bird, just in case. We'll go over that. But you will see that, there's excessive beak rubbing, regurgitation. I take care of an African gray that I call him an only child. And that is the hardest because when he is brought to me to care for, he's always regurgitating to me, to the owner, and I don't encourage that. I just don't. And now he's with me forever because because he is definitely, he's part of the flock dynamic in my household. We definitely see the hormonal displaying of feathers and possibly some pinning. Amazons are the easiest to tell, right? Right. I think cockatoos are the hardest. But, most birds will pin. Their eyes will pin. They're posturing. They're, engaged with a like image a little bit more. This is the biggie. They're searching for a cavity. Like I said, the cockatiel, all they need is something that looks like a nest hole. But sometimes if we use the little tents in our cages and we start seeing the birds displaying, our pets displaying that, might be a good idea to take that away because that is a nesty situation. Like I said, you'll see excessive chewing and marking. They might be in a multi-flock dynamic where they were getting along with each other on Monday, and here it is Wednesday, and now they're, you just see those behaviors. Learn to know what they are. You'll also, and these are the hard ones, increased appetite. Right now, all of my birds at home are definitely chowing through some food, going through some food, and they're soaking their food in the water. That is definitely a sign. When you see that, now some birds are doing it all the time, but when you see that as something that happens periodically, that's definitely, I'm getting ready for something, okay? So, and that. And then there's the obvious signs. Your hen lays an egg. We know that. How many here weigh their birds on a regular basis at home? Oh, awesome. Definitely part of it. Good, responsible pet bird keeping. When you see a slight increase of weight, we all got the birds with the winter weight. I've got my birds, but I noticed when we were grooming, the kids and I were grooming our flock the other day or a couple of weeks ago, everybody's up. Everybody, the males, the females, everybody's up about 5 grams. So you got to watch that. And yeah, it coincided with excessive shredding, screaming. And my African gray did lay an egg, so spring is here. Sometimes some species are very good at crouching, or they're rubbing their vents. Birds are going to ovulate, the hens are going to ovulate no matter what, whether they present an egg or not. The main thing is we want to make sure that we are taking care of them in order to handle that. This is a problem. How many of you, has anybody out here had a bird that got egg bound? Number one reason for that, this. When hens have egg production going on, okay, whether they get the shell or not. But what happens, and this is something that can cause some feather damaging behavior, if they have a little bit of a fat pad here, they cannot easily process that whole lay that egg or let the egg be absorbed, because the fat prevents it. And it is definitely a problem. You can also do a closer inspection of your bird and check to see what shape the cloacal is. Oval, usually a hen. And these are definitely, we're talking about the girls, okay? This is something that's really subtle. People don't realize this, but some birds have a habit of biting their nails or their feet. And if it's a hen, and if it's on the left foot, or maybe she's plucking right there. I was looking at a bird earlier this week that had some plucking going on. Nothing major, just a little bit of irritation. There's something going on in the body, and it's not like the bird goes, hey, it's that time of the month. They just don't do that. You know, not that they ovulate every month, every 28 days like humans do, but it is an uncomfortable situation, and there's something going on. And that's how they're showing us signs that they're doing it. See the plucking on here. This is not the only reason we would have feather damaging behavior, but it's definitely something to consider. Okay. Whoops. Went fast. Does anybody here use artificial lighting for their birds? Artificial light, full spectrum lighting. Yeah. I don't use it. I live in Florida. My birds go outside. They come in. But one of the things that I think that has been a misconception is how long and how often to use these full spectrum light situations. They're great. They're good. They don't really offer any nutritional value like people thought they were supplying vitamin D. That's been proven that it doesn't. But it does make them feel good. But when you have really extended time frames of full spectrum lighting, the LH secretion is definitely, it's increasing, and that is what triggers the reproductive hormones. I mean, when I first started breeding birds, I was breeding birds in Indiana, and that's, 22 degrees below zero in January. My birds were all bred indoors. I used artificial lighting. I wanted a little production, I wanted that. But for my pet birds, no. So, depending on where you are is, all that. Not too many artificial light systems are sold in Florida now. Does everybody take turns feeding and caring for the birds in your flock? Good strategy. Definitely. How many are the only bird? You're it. That's a challenge. That definitely presents a challenge because you are the one, you're the mate. You're bringing the food. You are bringing the food. And that's kind of a sticky-wicky situation because the bird could be perceiving you as the mate.
Well, they do. I have two males.
Uh-huh.
They do compete for my attention a little bit.
Oh, absolutely.
But, they're cockatiels. They're 18 and 19 years old, so it's kind of like we've all grown,
Yeah.
So it's not a really, it's just a dynamic that's there, but yeah.
It's a cool flock. It's a cool flock.
Yeah, we're pretty good.
Yeah, I don't see too much hormonal problems or challenges with cockatiels, and especially once they're, past 17, 18, they're...
I was wondering, do they ever, like people, are they sexually active their whole lives, or do they have a...
They can, males can, just like humans.
Females, are they...
That's a good question. It's a good question.
Can you repeat the question?
Do female birds go through menopause? Or something similar, something comparable to a human menopause. A female only has so many egg follicles. She's not going to lay forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Once it's laid, it's not going to be replaced inside, okay? So if that time has passed and if she's been ovulating, whether a female has presented an egg or not, because the last thing that happens in egg production in a female bird is the shell gets put on, okay, before it passes through. And oftentimes in healthy birds, it's just reabsorbed by the body. So we don't really see, but that's a spent egg. It's a spent egg follicle. So
Males, like humans, are just, my males are going to be active for their whole life.
they can be. I mean, you know, their viability sperm count is definitely, you know, compromised. But you know, they just have a little bit. They have a little bit longer life in that area. I mean, females just got it tough. Us girls just got it tough. But anyway, this is something that I see a lot. People don't realize the overindulgent and causing being the cause of some of the hormonal explosion, especially if they're over fondling, over preening, petting, coddling. This is interpreted. We have to remember that our birds, even though they're domestic, they still have the programming of a wild bird. They're not that evolutionized. They're not like the dog from the wolf, where you got 1,000 years. We're talking about 3 or 4, 5, 6 generations. And cockatiels, it's a little bit longer than that. But you know, but when it comes to our larger parrots, that's something we have to remember. So those instincts are strong. So anything that can be perceived by the brain, and the brain is where a lot of those triggers are. You know, we just got to be careful about what is being interpreted. That's why we're very careful about where we touch birds. We don't touch them in these areas. We don't want to touch them near the commissures. How many here have macaws? Macaws, big birds. Those are the easiest to identify what happens when you mess around with a commissure on a macaw. Okay, it's a very sensitive area. There's a hormone receptor in all birds, but especially macaws. Because if you look at macaws in the wild breeding or in an aviary, what do they do in their courtship? They beak each other. They're triggering those hormones. So we definitely have to be careful about where we touch our pet macaws. So those are definitely
I'm trying to see where the other places are that you're.
any place in this zone, underneath the wing, that type of
They
thing.
won't let me touch them there, so.
How many talk to their birds and go like this? Oh, baby, it's so sweet to see you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I got a macaw at home. If I do that, man, I tell you what, I got a scar right here where he bit me. You have a question? We're going to get to that. Okay, but I do want to talk about voice. Make sure that when your birds are displaying those, especially if you have the larger species, the macaws, the cockatoos, the Amazons, you're careful about your voice tone. Don't use high pitch. You know, I mean, I saw something on TV a couple of days ago on CNN or something where, you know, dogs respond to that, you know, puppies, you know, hey, puppy, puppy, you know, they do that, but we don't want to do that with our birds. So, but anyway, safe places to touch birds. I guess that slide isn't in there. I thought it was next. I'm sorry. Safe place. You want to be my bird?
Oh, sure.
She's going to be my bird.
I don't know.
It's okay. It's safe. Here's a good place.
Yeah, they love that.
Here's the ears. We want to touch the ears. We want to avoid, basically, we want to avoid places where you would not want me to touch you. Huh? Down the neck a little bit. Do not go down the body. Don't, yeah. Here, just be real careful about that. It's getting close to there. But the safest place is always the top of the head.
My birds like to rub against me with their chins. Is that, are they? I mean, they rub against me, you know. So
Well, that is.
are we talking if they're seeing me as a mate, or?
Yeah, possibly, but I'm not going to say definitely. I'm just saying if there are other behaviors that we've talked about that are associated.
I don't know anymore, you know. This becomes the usual behavior.
That's just it. We're being a little unconscious with this. And like I said, cockatiels, I don't see them as much of a problem. That's my experience, personal experience, as like the Amazons, the macaws, you know, the conures, especially conures. Feet, be careful with the feet. Yeah. Yeah, she likes it too much. Hey, honey, if it didn't feel good, we'd all die. So, okay. Now, other things that are contributing. Feeding. Feeding is such a big, big issue. When you have lots of food, an abundance of it, and there's such a variety, what is it telling that bird instinctually? Time to make babies. There'll be food for everybody. So we have to be really careful about that. Excess calorie is definitely, and remember what we said earlier about obesity, being a contributing factor to, the decline, the shortening of birds' life. Sometimes when we're constantly feeding these type of foods, I know many people that, bird caretakers that cook a breakfast for their bird, cook a lunch for their bird, cook a dinner. Their husband comes home, they give them a hot dog, but the birds get 3 cooked meals. Plus their seeds, their everything. And that is an abundance of food. That is definitely, going to be rolling out as, we got a problem with our hormones. That bird is in constant hormone overdrive, and the poor husband has got a hot dog for dinner. So, but I've actually truly seen that before. So, but this is what is triggering. This is what also triggers hormones. So, like I said, you want, and this is not working resolution-wise. I'm sorry about that. But, a lot of the soaked foods, the high fatty, and giving, like if your birds are showing and displaying hormone, don't give them a lot of cooked food. It's a temperature thing. All I have to do is give my birds, especially my yellow-naped Amazon, who is a retired, proven breeding hen, something warm. Her tail is in the air, and she's doing this, looking for somebody. So I got to be really careful about that. And the thing of it is, I eat oatmeal for breakfast in the morning. I am not sharing that one with them. So, but, and warm water. So, sugar. Sugar is another thing. Dehydrated fruits. And we have them. They're great treats for birds in moderation. But when the birds are displaying, we don't want to give them a lot of it. And there are other foods that are natural, we wouldn't think about it, that have a lot of sugar. And they're like fresh fruits and veggies, corn. I don't think there's a bird in the United States or anywhere that doesn't love corn. Oh, yeah, that is sugar, 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 sugar. Sugar. So, if a bird doesn't have enough foraging opportunities, they get really challenged. They don't have something to do, and there's a reason for it. When birds are foraging for food, it's not in abundance, it's not readily available. They have to work for it. Okay, so when you see a bird that doesn't have foraging, if a bird in your house doesn't have something to do, and it doesn't have to be a super complicated thing, it can be a paper bag, brown paper bag with toy parts in it. The coyote's afraid of color brown. I'm sure there are some other things that, the idea, I don't think I've ever known of a white paper bags. Yeah, there you go. As long as it doesn't have a lot of color and stuff like that. Share the duties in the household with feeding. That is the biggest part. Everybody in my household takes turns feeding the birds. For the longest time, I was the one who did it. There are 5 parrots in my house. I was the one who did it because the kids were off to school, husband's off to work. Most of the time I work out of my home office. But I've noticed that since I've been traveling a lot more with work, and everybody's taking care of the birds, it's a really awesome strategy. It's a very good strategy. Because what happens, and I'll show you, this is how birds think. We talked about what their instincts are. In the wild, they forage in one place. They forage to another to look for food as a flock. The youngsters are with the older birds. They're all going. But when they go to sleep, they sleep in another tree. And sometimes, and the only time that they stay in one spot is during breeding season. One spot with one bird, their mate. Okay? So oftentimes we are unconsciously creating that little nest. Okay? You let the birds what? You let them go.
Like if one bird is not in its cage, one of the other birds might fly over and want to come in and check it out.
Opportunistic. Yeah, not quite the same thing. Not quite the same thing, but that happens a lot. Now, I don't let my birds visit each other's cages because territorial. Well, that and my yellow-naped Amazon, she outranks everybody, including my human children, and she knows it. She knows it. Yeah, I mean, I didn't marry my husband until I got her blessing. So, but this is what happens. How many have 2 different cages for their birds? 2? Nighttime, daytime cage? It's hard when you got a lot of birds. But here's something. Do you have play gyms? Common area? That's a very good thing. Other things, and this is part of the lifestyle and the habitat. The single cage dwelling. It's monotonous. It actually creates, in their mind, that nest. Okay, they start defending it when they only have one cage, and that's where they are most of the time. Absolutely. When I first was introduced to the concept, it was Josie, our facility manager at Hari. I just went, this was like 20 years ago. I was like, Josie, seriously, you just want me to buy another cage? You just want people to buy another cage? We're not the only ones that think this way. But Josie had come to my house and she goes, you do implement a nighttime cage, because I would bring my birds in to one place and then every day I would take them outside on the patio, whether it was raining or it was chilly or whatever. That was their outside environment. So that was the change for them. And so that's why I'm saying it's when a bird stays in a cage. Now cockatiels can be a little different.
When I'm home, they're on top of their cages. They've got gyms. They've got their pool. So they don't have another cage, but they're out of their.
It's a great situation. It's a great situation.
And they'll go in and eat with the door open, and then but they have stuff all over them.
Did you say they have a pool?
Well, it's a Pyrex pan. They like to go in and wade and splash around it. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I heard you say that. I'm sitting there going, okay.
I call it a pool, but whatever.
Isn't that awesome? I like that. Yes.
Does it matter where the sleeping cage is? Should it be in your bedroom?
Sleeping cage? That is a very good question. Sleeping cage is where a bird gets quiet, undisturbed rest for at least an average 8 to 10 hours. And actually, I have a lot of cockatiel people that I've been dealing with, and they suggest cockatiels need 12 hours of sleep. So.
Do you use the sleeping cage as just another spot during the day?
It depends on the sleeping cage, on the size of it. My birds, and I'll use the example of my sleeping cages for my 2 African greys and the yellow nape and the blue crown conure. They're small. They can turn around. It's not confining, but it's small. Their outside cages, or their daytime cages rather, are huge. That's where we do many different things. And they get excited and they get grumpy. But there are times when, like, let's say during a hurricane in Florida, you can't put the birds out in a big cage. So, you know, but so that's why a sleeping cage should be a little bit smaller, but still there is that offset chance that, let's say, you get stuck someplace or for some reason the bird has to stay there for a couple of days. You just have to use some common sense with that. Okay, now about daytime cages. Okay, we're going to talk about a little bit about marking territory because this happens a lot. How many have bought a used cage and seen marks on the cage? Or how many have them at home? That's your bird, and that's usually the male that does that, where they rub their beak up along the doors, on the side. I have a old blue and gold macaw. He likes to do it around his feed station at times. That is in the wild, the birds would be marking their nest entrances, scratching them up and all that. They're not really leaving a scent like a mammal would, but they are definitely, it's a visual thing, and it's, mine. Mine, mine, mine. Not yours. That's what they're doing. So those are definitely signs. Okay. The thing about shredding toys, we always give a warning about putting shredding and toys inside that one single cage. Now, if you have the alternative cage system or a common area, great place to put the shredding toys. But if the bird lives in a single cage, so if somebody comes into the shop and they say, well, my bird is like really grumpy and really everything else, and you find out that the bird never leaves his cage, they give him toys, he shreds them, and he's still aggressive. The suggestion is take the shredded toys out of that single cage, encourage them to get a play gym or an alternative cage. There are places where those type of toys are perfect, and there are places where they should never be. And that sleep cage or that single cage dwelling bird should not have that, because that is imitating the nest. I mean, when parrots are making nests, Mother Nature says, shred, tear it up, make bedding for your babies. Okay? These are definitely, that's what I was talking about on these little nesty things or tents. They're really cool, but let's try to keep them out of the nighttime cage or that single cage. Put them in a common area, because they do cuddle the bird. They do make that bird feel like, I want to know. My yellow ape would love one. I mean, when she, like right now, in my office, I have a climbing rope that spans the ceiling so that all of the birds can be on it. She likes to climb down any way she can, and she wants to go in the closet. And as best friends as we are, when she gets in the closet, she starts defending the closet. And I have to tell her to pick her up. Any other time, I can do anything I want with her, so I got to get her before she gets there. Because then that becomes her nest. She's going to start. But this is a proven female yellow-naped Amazon who, for years, she wanted to do that. I encouraged her to do that, and now I don't want her to do it. So, how do you break them? Well, you don't let them get in the closet.
They start to chew everything around either.
We'll talk about that. We're going to create environments. Okay. We got flock dynamic down. You guys got a flock dynamic, okay? Example, versatile living quarters, okay? The day cage, the night cage. You know, if you have play gyms and they're out, that's versatile enough, okay? But if you have to leave, you don't want your bird cooped up in the little itty-bitty cage. You want them in a safe. You have to be responsible and have safe. But the daytime cage has all the fun and the excitement, okay? The components of a nighttime cage, to bring your hormone levels down, this is what that is meaning, but it's going to have a comfortable perch. It might have a foraging toy in it just in case you can't get back to wake your bird up or get your bird up to the other cage. Only a formulated diet, only water. And preferably, you got a really good substrate in the cage that you can observe the first morning stool. You know, that's my recommendation. Huh? I'm sorry, did you say? I thought somebody said something. Okay. You know, here's some other suggestions. I mean, big size cages. Outside gyms. Outside gyms are awesome. Something that protects them. they're ready to go to bed. All my birds at home, my pet birds, when it starts getting close to, they know what time it is. Time to go to bed. They'll tell me, time to go to bed. And the only one that I have a problem getting to go to bed is this little blue-crowned conure that is, she's the youngest. She's not an older bird, but she wants to play all day. So, but if you can...
I find when I put them into the cage in the evening, they just quiet down.
They've gone to bed.
Yeah.
See, but yeah, you have basically done this.
Going on in the other room, they can hear that. They can hear me moving around. But once I guess because they're out so much during the day, that when I actually close them in, they just kind of perch and go to sleep. And it's
So basically, you have created, would you guys agree that she's, with her setup of her cockatiels that are out all day long, when they're ready to go to bed, they quiet down. You have your daytime cage, which is your house.
if I leave, like I go on errands, obviously when I leave home, I put them back in their cage.
Exactly.
But I know when I come home, they're stretching their wings, they've been sleeping.
Yeah.
Because
You have that. You really kind of have that. You know, that is really what you have.
they're okay.
They're okay.
That's a cute picture.
Good bird bomb. See, you didn't even know. You were like me. Didn't even know you were doing such an awesome job. You know, sometimes we can get birds that are not the same species to be good buddies. Do you have good buddies at your house? Everybody hates you. A female eclectus rules everything. No, that is typical of that species. That's a species predisposition. She rules. She is boss, boss, boss. So, but sometimes we can get that. When I used to raise a lot of birds myself, I used to raise my cockatoos with my macaws because I didn't want to spoil my cockatoo because I'm not a doty person, and so I wanted independent cockatoos, but I also wanted, a sweet Amazon or a sweet macaw. So I did that often. That's how I raised mine. And we do that a lot at Hari, too. The other thing that is also an awesome thing to do when you need to reduce those hormones, take your bird for a ride. Probably one at a time. Take them with you. Oh. I mean, do your birds have a favorite radio station? Mine, like AC/DC and... Okay. Like jazz?
I think it's because they grew up with it, because that's what I like. You know, I mean, it's
Well, they're 19 years. Yeah, they definitely
just because that's when they always heard it.
might very well be. Maybe that's why I think my birds like AC/DC. No, actually, my favorite thing to do on a Sunday morning is to put all my birds out on the patio, put my iPod in the speaker, and turn up the music, and give them a bath. Oh my gosh, they get exercise when they do that. They get their little scream, rant, and raves at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. My neighbors don't like me. I don't care. No, I do care, but, you know, it depends. It's a threat. Okay, with diet, we've talked about what to eliminate during certain times of the year. Okay. Create foraging. If food is too easy to eat and too easy to get to, you're triggering. If you make it just a little bit challenging. And by the way, it doesn't necessarily have to be... What a neat thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be the seeds and everything else. Birds like to forage for if they eat pellets. In fact, I recommend this if somebody tells me they can get their bird to eat pellet. I say stop putting it in a bird dish and put it in something the bird wouldn't expect to find it. That's a very good strategy. And definitely, change the value of your pellets. We have many formulations of Tropican so that we know that, as I was explaining to that gentleman earlier, there are certain times of the year that I give my birds lifetime, and certain times I give them more alternative, which is a newer diet. It's something to reduce, it changes the value, the fat content, the protein content, some of the ingredients. But foraging is always awesome. And I think cockatiels are the most awesome to watch forage. I used to raise lots of them myself, but it relieves their boredom. They just have a great time. It's instinctual for them to do it. and it also stimulates exercise, gives them occupational therapy, and quite frankly, it's psychologically beneficial. It's not just, all of our birds benefit. What do you do for foraging for your bird?
Me?
Yeah.
I have this, I made foraging toys.
Cool.
The toys we have, I just like cut holes in them and shove nuts in there.
Cool.
So we have to get them. Then we have this coconut that I move around. I put nuts in there.
Cool.
Take a roll, shove holes in there, and then
See, everything, and like we said, could be a brown paper bag or a white paper bag for the exceptional bird. We have, at Hagen, we have many different pet categories, and we take things from other pet categories and use them with our birds. This is actually a cat treat ball. And that is always fun to watch a bird try to get those things and push them around. I like to do this for a lot of birds just to create some kind of, and it doesn't necessarily have to be foraging for food, but it is a good strategy. They like to explore. Just make sure if you do something like this that the pieces, the rocks and all that are not too big for them. Yeah, right. Too small. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks. I did say that wrong. But that is probably, and that keeps him busy. It keeps him very busy. And if a bird is busy looking for something, he doesn't have time to think about, it's spring, it's spring, it's spring. Definitely reduce the types of foods that are going to trigger the hormones. Enrichment food. I don't know why we particularly had those two, but Josie put in.
less vegetables and soft food.
Less, yes, correct, less. Or just be careful with it. I always go with the greens and the oranges, even though that was in that picture. When I'm giving my birds enrichment food, even though it's hormonal season, I usually make it, it's not fruit, it's leafy green, like kale, something, but not a whole lot. I mean, I see what people bring for their pet birds, and it's like, the crop is only so big.
Let the bird know that.
Yeah, and they waste most of it. So, it's just something. But other ways, make sure, if you're seeing the hormones going up and you're using the full spectrum light, bring them down. If your desire is to increase breeding and productivity, naturally do the opposite. Exercise. Exercise is probably one of the most challenging thing for people. How many here belong to a flight club and fly the birds every day at 5 a.m.? Yeah, it's tough. How many use a flight harness? Trying to? Good, good. How many here have birds that do jumping jacks? Jumping jacks. Can you do it for me? He doesn't have to. As long as he's okay with it. There you go. Or if you have him on your hand, it's even more effective. Up and down, up and down. Yeah, my yelling aid. Okay. You know what? That's what I call jumping jacks. You know why? Because if you do it repetitiously, about 25 times, it exercises yeah, your arm gets tired. Well, there's different ways of doing it. I use this a lot with my birds. Bungee, the bungee ropes. I don't hang them in the bird cage. No. I'm going to sit in my comfortable chair and I'm going to exercise my bird. But no, actually stand up. But the best way is to boing them. It's great exercise. They have to balance. They get strength in their legs. They flap their wings as part of that. And it helps because the most important muscles that they have to keep in shape are right here. And it is very good. It's very good for them. Your hens, remember the slide with the fat pad? Make them climb. Yeah, hens need to climb. They need to do this. That helps keep that down. That's why, the rope canopies and that, if you hang them vertically, It gives them an opportunity. I teach this to my stores that have a lot of birds when they're putting the birds back, and they know that, especially if they got females, put the bird on the bottom of the cage and make them work up. Not that it's real super effective, but it's a good habit to get into, to make the bird climb up. I mean, definitely helpful. Okay, and if you've got to have the treats, I really recommend the spray millet as a treat. See, that's what all my birds, including the macaw, will eat spray millet.
My vet doesn't like millet spray. She says there's been a number of times she's had to surgically remove some of, it's the pet bird clinic down the street.
Wow.
And so, because I was using that, she said, no, I don't like millet spray. I guess she had some bad experience of having to remove it. It got stuck or something. So I stopped using it. So I don't know. That was just the vet's.
That's interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of that, but I can see it happening. But there had to have been another reason, but it doesn't happen commonly. We've been...
Got stuck, and maybe she had some traumatic experience removing it, so she just rather not deal with it. But, so I don't know.
Well, that is up to you. I like to use it and incorporate it into toys so that, once again, they're foraging. But the cool thing about millet spray, aside from the vet that had a problem, I'm sorry, one, make sure it's clean, not moldy, whatever, but it's low fat. I mean, if my birds, it's silence. All you ever hear when it's millet spray time in my household is the popping of the millet. And it keeps them busy, and I don't have to worry about extra it's like rice cakes. Just don't have to worry about it. And if you are, with the smaller birds like that, I mean, you can provide it. The millet spray is good for them, and it's a great way if you just mist it with water and put powder vitamins or Glycal or something on it. It's a very good way to implement that. It gets right in there. Now, we do have a new diet of Tropicana, a new formulation that we've been testing. In fact, my birds have been on this since 2015. But it is a no corn, no soy. And I'm not going to tell you that corn and soy will take away all hormone problems. Those are two ingredients that are known to trigger, but it definitely helps when you do other things. Just like if you are, you can't just rely on one strategy. Okay? But as part of diet, it's definitely a helpful situation. No corn, no soy. What it has instead are alternative protein sources. We use quinoa, and we use ground walnut. There's ground pumpkin in there. It's a very yummy mix. It's a little bit more expensive, but at first we designed it for older birds. But, because our flock up at Hari is definitely aging, and we know that there are changes. But it's not limited to senior birds. It's also for birds that have challenges with some proteins and all that. So corn and soy are amongst the most difficult to digest. So it's worked out really good. But anyway, I do have samples up here for you guys. Right now it's just available in one size morsel. You can try it with your cockatiels. It might be a little bit too big. It's about a 4 millimeter disc. Other things, fresh air. This is how we're bringing down the hormone level. Fresh air. And here's your touch me, touch me, touch me. That is always the safe place to touch. And it is on kind of close to the neck, but not the chin.
Oh, they love it. When they fluff their feathers back out.
Spraying the birds. We use cooler water when we're bathing the birds. It calms them. It reduces the hormone level. It was the warm water, like the warm food, warm water. So cooler water. And actually, the way we groom birds up at Hari, and this is the way we do it at my house, and my kids do it. We always mist a bird down before we groom them anyway, just because it brings their body temperature down. So, but we do use spray bottles a lot. And you can always let the bird, if he can get to a place that's very, quiet and stable, where he can do a little preening himself instead of, I'm too stressed to preen. That type of thing. Like that. cooler water. And if touching is a challenge, and like especially with people with cockatoos, you just touch the bird and all of a sudden it's silly. Wrap it up in a towel just to desensitize the touch. That's in extreme cases, and I hope that everybody knows how to towel their own bird.
So they won't take that's a hole to crawl into?
No, because you're toweling them. You're toweling them. And that. No, if you just say, here, get in, that's different. But when you towel the bird, it's calm. I mean, we towel birds when we handle them up at Hari and at my house. And I mean, when you towel them properly, the birds are really calm. They just sit there and, hey, what are you doing? And, that type of thing. So that's how you know when they do pretty good. Some of the other strategies that you can also work out if you have like video. My birds love to watch TV. I preferably want to show them TV where other birds are in the flock. This is really good if you have an only child, to let them know. Of course, I think it's way out there, but in some situations it works. It does work. Okay, and on our website, we have all kinds of mind charts and stuff like that. You can go to our website, print them down yourself. Be honest about what, if you need to evaluate a bird or you're getting a bird in from a rescue or, an unknown situation, you can definitely record this. The biggest challenge for rescues, or parrot rescues, is that when they get the birds, they have an unknown anything. So nothing's guaranteed in life. Always have a good record system. I mean, I have a big old book on my shelf in the kitchen of my animals, because it's just part of anything ever happens. It's in there. This is what the bird eats. This is what the bird does. If the bird is doing this, and I have it for the tortoise, I have it for the dogs, I have it for the cats, along with their vet records. Everything is right there. So, but keep your records, because it's going to be helpful for your bird, just in case something happens. Like the gentleman that was here before that had to leave. His friend passed, and he got the birds. So, he's like, I don't know why they're doing this. So, always consult with your avian veterinarian. And that pretty much... Yeah, this was a photo shoot with some African greys. We have a wonderful aviculturist up in Canada who runs a bird boarding facility, and her greys are spectacular. They are so fun to play with. And so they did. We have a lot more of them. So, but anyway, don't want to turn it into an infomercial, but this is brought to you by Tropic Inn. So,
What is your website and how can they contact you for Facebook?
Oh, www.hari.ca for Canada. Do I have any cards? What I have some little printouts on cardstock. I mean, I have my business card, but for information, if you just want to know where to go, what information to look for on our website, just a little reminder card. I live in Florida. Hari is in